What's up, hustlers? This is Andrew, your host for today's episode of Startup Hustle, founder of Marknology, here with the founder of nReach, Chris Freiberger. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. Glad to have you. We've been friends, colleagues, business partners in a way, in a few arrangements for quite a while. I'm excited to get a little bit into your backstory. Before we do, let's give a shout out to our sponsor for today's show, Fullscale.io, helping you build software teams quickly and affordably. Chris, let's start with kind of how you got into this business. We've met because of Amazon. And helping brands, my agency Marknology and yours, helping matchmake a little bit, finding the right agency for the right brands. But let's go back before then. I know you have a lot of agency experience and things like that. Go back as far as you want. Let's start at the beginning and get to know Chris a little bit.
Well, sure. I'm not going to go too far back, but and again, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity. I like to talk about this stuff. I actually enjoy this space and love to talk about and educate as well. And I think it applies to everybody. So bear with me if I go off on too much of a tangent. But my background is really 25 years in the ad agency business, and really from a digital standpoint. So pretty much everything e-commerce. I don't want to get too nerdy, but a lot of SEO and PPC and Google AdWords. My interesting fact, my first day at work, I had Mozilla installed, but that week actually Netscape 1.0 had come out, and that was installed on my computer. So I left a little gray in my beard for you to prove that I am a .com survivor and the like. So I have a few tree rings, if you will. So
no, I love it. I love it, and then I've obviously leaned on you, not just as a colleague, but to get agency experience. And my background doesn't come from an agency, but I've built one. So there's learnings on both sides, and you bring different things to the table. So you've been in it a while, in the early days, even 20 years.
25. Yep. I don't want to count.
Okay. We won't count, but 25 years. I would think, we're at the beginning of the Amazon boom, right? We're in the early years. Was it the early days then of, people really thinking critically about SEO and investing in Google PPC and things like that?
Yeah. So if you can think of, and I struggle with a direct analogy, but it is, the environment in Amazon is very .com-esque right now. It's just supernova with COVID, and we can talk further about that. But a lot of the things are similar. So, back then you can think of maybe, let's say 2001 post Google launch, right? We really invented SEO and the first pay-per-click ads, and that whole thing. And even if you're real, optimizing websites and then the oncoming of social media and its application and so on and so forth. Well, all of those things are mapping again to Amazon. It's just the rules are a little bit different, and it's brand new.
I love it, and I've enjoyed being in the space because of its newness and the ability to come in. When I fell in love with e-commerce was a little bit later, and what was new, and what was hadn't been trailblazed, and at least from where the neck of the woods I found myself in, and it was oh, this is e-commerce, but a new arena. Let's go play. Okay, so you're in the agency world. Let's get a little bit deeper.
Sure.
You're just working at an agency at that time?
Yeah, but so unfortunately, if you're a survivor of that industry, you will understand that it's a young man's game. I really worked on just about every kind of brand, with every size of agency. It's bouncing in that career is frequent, and so I've had a fortunate to be exposed to, again, just about every industry, every vertical. I'm here in Cincinnati, not far from KC, but here in everything is Procter and Gamble, and worked with them in the past as well. And so what I saw is about 2.5 years ago was that those agencies were doing all of the things that those brands needed, but they weren't addressing Amazon. Amazon it was a threat. It wasn't. We're going to plan for it a little bit later on. We don't really understand it, and certainly we can't do the stuff on there that Marknology does, and stuff's hard. It's a very hard space, and so what I realized then was that, hey, there's this new ecosphere that's grown up, that you, Mark, and Marknology lives within, but it's really the wild, wild west. There's fly by night, get rich quick, and then there's these gems like Marknology that are just doing excellent work. And so there's someone that, what I do is I vet those resources. I find out who the best are, and when sellers, brands, partners, need to find out who to work with to figure this out, I simply make an introduction between the two. And so that's what my company nReach does, and been doing about for 2.5 years now. It's been a long building process, we'll say, but now I think I am working with the best in the industry, and have a value add there, just to kind of guide people and maybe avoid mistakes that others are making. So,
Chris, like I'm always going to you when I need, I'm looking for someone, a translating company, or even potential hires, or expanding internationally and looking for an agency partner to help us in that way. You've got the connections, the industry. From your perspective, if you're making a guess, I think that you've talked to most of the players kind of in our space or know of them. How many agencies are there, like, a step above or a step below Marknology kind of in this space right now?
Ooh, that's a really good question. You're trying to get some competitive insights from me. No,
I mean, just share it as you will.
So I'll share an interesting stat, okay, and you can share where you are in that hierarchy. Okay, the largest.
I'm setting you up for like a T-ball home run right here.
Okay. The largest Amazon savvy agency, we'll say. Well, it depends on how you define that, but a 1P agency, like Marknology, has about 135 employees right now. Okay, if you in the ad agency world, I mean, there are agencies with thousands of employees, obviously. So that gives you a scale as to, where we are in the growth of this new universe, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think a lot of the people that have taken on this space have learned it themselves. Usually the founder of whatever those companies are have learned it themselves, and then they either went build my own brand, they went build a software because they've like figured it out to do their own stuff. They built a software and they're like, well, that's a lot easier to scale. And I think there's less of us that have gone down the route of servicing others, or servicing other brands. And so it's not that there's not that many people that know Amazon, but when you think of it as like 3 different ways they could go, I know a guy here in Kansas City that, exited for double digits in the millions, from a private label brand he built. And I was studying him before I even knew he was here because I liked what he was doing on Amazon. But he is an Amazon expert. He doesn't, he's never worked with other brands, right? So I think that there are those types of people out there that have like learned Amazon pretty well.
Yes.
But they just didn't have the desire to build an agency. And so it's kind of even left of those different routes. Maybe there's like a third that are actually in the service in the agency based space. And it's ever growing. I know that the pandemic has like, probably accelerated, agencies focus there as well.
Yeah, well, and again, we could talk for hours about how COVID has made Amazon go double supernova, if that's a thing, and the reaction and the business models they're breaking. You mentioned, for instance, obviously, like you would come from a seller background and grown up, and these are the people that had the keys that knew how to do the unicorns, as I refer to them. You are a unicorn that know how to actually do this stuff and optimize for sales on Amazon. But the point is that that explosion is also affecting, say, the legal profession, or how or hiring in this space. There are actually HR companies that are devoted to just hiring in this space. Programming, there's a unique API. It's actually very, very difficult with no support from Amazon. And I apologize. I think I have a siren going by if you can hear it. But
No.
that said, name it, and every aspect of business, and never mind the back end of things like the logistics of getting product all over the world, which is really what they're disturbing what Jeff Bezos is after is he's really the next railroad tycoon. And so, but that said, that he's breaking models all over. And so that's what nReach does is there's so many shelves with so many things that, resources that people need. And I think I've got, some of those things filled in for people. But it's very difficult, but a huge opportunity for, I would contend, almost any business out there. I mean, you have to either react to Amazon, you have to solve for Amazon, or you have to protect yourself from Amazon. In some respect, I think in just about every aspect of commerce going forward.
Was talking to a manufacturer today, actually, or a representative of a manufacturer today, and they have a sales team, they have a retail team, and asked the retail team what they're doing about Amazon, and they said that they haven't thought about it. They haven't thought about it. Their competitors there already, and they hadn't thought about it.
And their product is probably on Amazon. They just don't know it.
There's a couple, so I'll just let that sit there. They haven't thought about it.
Yeah. Somebody else did enough to put their product on it for them. But
so, yeah, and their competitors doing over 1 million, annually. Wow. Without even really trying, from what I looked at. But it's just crazy to me that, in this space that we're living in, this time, I guess, not this space, this time that we're living in, for brands at a high level to not be at least thinking about mitigating, Amazon, whether they're going to be there, whether they're going to dominate it, whether they're going to protect their brand. It has to have crossed their mind.
Right. I mean, we said, you and I sound like we far drank the Kool-Aid, at this point. And so, right. I don't want to lose, everyone and say, Amazon. But it really is that I encourage people, and I at the footer now of everything I send out and communicate with people, I have a short list of, like, a reading list just to set a context on Amazon. There's a wonderful PBS Frontline that's a 2-hour documentary. It came out about 7 months ago, and you just quick Google, you can find it, or you can put it in the show notes. But it's just a wonderful overview, and it really, about halfway into that, I think everyone, it's like, oh, okay, his mission's actually to get humanity off the earth.
Yeah.
So we'll start there. That's what makes the guy tick. And so knowing that he's going to cover the earth and then beyond. So,
well, I love it. I love and hate Amazon. I'll say that publicly. Like, it's a love-hate kind of relationship. It's the stress in my day, but it's also, like, changed my life as far as an entrepreneur, and, what I've been able to do for my family and my team because of Amazon, and for all the brands we work with. We've worked with over 300. We've taken some of them internationally. We're dominating. I have one of my accounts dominating in Japan right now, which, a couple of years ago, that would have never crossed my mind as, like, something I would be doing, launching a brand in Japan. So
we work together. We know that the next challenge for us, right, is to take a brand that succeeds on the .com, if you will, the US or the North American marketplace, and then reflect it out, into the 14 other, or is it 15, or anyway, number of other marketplaces on Amazon, and then the other marketplaces too, really overnight for the first time ever. So if you want, like, mind blowing, that's one of those. It's like, wow, like, you can sell now this product as easily across the street as you can in the Philippines.
Right.
So
no, and the easier they make it, the better. We're just getting more global, and it's just a way to think, like, not just as an American, but think as a global citizen, and just, like, as products start being available to everyone, and all these things become universal. It'll be really interesting to see how things change. I think right now Marknology is in 11 or 12.
That's fantastic.
Of the 15.
And so, we need to talk about that, by the way. But yes, yeah. Honestly, it's amazing. If you start to think about how it's transforming e-commerce and how it's going to just trickle down. I mean, obviously now he's taking on pharma. He's soon you're going to buy a car. on there. Actually, the car companies, I just spoke with one last week, and they're looking for planning for the coming, because eventually you're going to be able to buy their cars on Amazon.
Well, Carvana, so you'll get these ones that come out like Carvana or Warby Parker, which is like, a company that bypassed the needing to go in and get an eye doctor for your, glasses and stuff, and made it quite a bit cheaper to the consumers. I think these ideas come out like Carvana, and it's just a matter of time. Okay, they've paved the way. Okay, so how do we just like get this onto the marketplace? It's just like a shelf. I know Ford. Something interesting. This will just be if there's any Amazon geeks like tuning in that care about the details of this stuff. Like, I was talking to Ford Motor Company about like their Amazon presence and things like that, and they are one of the only companies I've found, and I was proven wrong in this conversation, that on their Amazon listings link out to Ford.com. So I've never seen like outbound linking at all. And so, I was pretty adamant about that. And then we started doing a little screen share and looking around, and their trucks link out to Ford.com. So I think there's some partnerships happening there, that you're talking about, in terms of like cars.
That's a deep take, man.
Yeah. When you feel like this stuff like an expert, and then you get proven wrong.
Right.
It's like
it changes it all changes yesterday.
Something as simple as an outbound link, but knowing that that's forbidden, as far as like the Amazon Bible goes, you're like, no, there's no outbound links. Don't link to your website. Don't do any of that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I think there's going to be some fun stuff. I think real estate's right behind it. Like Zillow has been monetizing, their stuff. They're like a Carvana in that way, right?
Yeah.
So we'll start selling houses and rentals, and then Amazon probably will as well.
Well, there is one thing that's interesting, and I think it's another way of investing, I think, in Amazon, going forward for others as well, is, there was a company called Thrash, THRAS.io, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. That about 9 months ago got the fastest evaluation to $1 billion in U.S. history. And what they're doing is basically buying brands on Amazon and flipping them. So if you look at a listing on Amazon, and again, we don't want to go too nerdy here, but there are very few optimized listings on Amazon. An expert like yourself can come by and easily squeeze any listing for a little bit more sales, right? Well, what they figured out with, $400 million in backing and capital is that, we're going to just go buy the brands, squeeze them, and then sell them off into something greater, and then rinse and repeat. That then made them $1 billion company, virtually overnight. That now as a result of that, there's the influx of VC capital from the coast, is arriving here for the first time ever, and this is all 6 months old.
Right. I've been feeling some of that. I've been reached out to by a lot of private equity firms. I think my count is like 6 now, that are like, are you interested in selling?
Yep. I have 2 more.
Gauging interest, and I'm having those conversations because I want to know what they have to say. I want to know what the landscape's like. I want to know what's going on. I've also had employee turnover by some of these agencies that are now getting capital, trying to go out and get some talent, because you have to learn this. You can't go to school for this, so it's creating some opportunities, but some challenges as well, I think. Yep. So it's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out. But I do feel like, what we do is extremely valuable, and VC money, the coast bringing money to Amazon marketing or Amazon, advertising, whatever you want to put us in a bucket for, it's overall driving up, the quality. I think softwares will start improving. I think, we're going to get more tools. We're going to get, it seems like every year there's something was missing, and now we've got it as far as the tool. And I'm excited, I think, in the long run, what it's going to do for our space.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. And if I may, again, not everybody knows or cares about Amazon, but right now I think I forget the stat, is that they've almost got 100,000 jobs open. That's not including the the warehouse stuff, obviously, and that has its role, and we can argue about salaries and things like that. But we're talking about, I think the average salary is about $150,000 around the world. There's 100,000 of those open at Amazon as we speak, not just in Seattle, but around everywhere. Now, that said, I would encourage you, if you are unemployed right now, or if you're, or post-COVID, you found yourself, I will speak, for instance, both my neighbors are pilots. And, after hitting every bump on the way down, they realize they have to reinvent themselves. And I would never encourage, don't take this advice, but, there are many places to, play in this area. And it's the opposite of what else is happening, like in the retail environment. I mean, all of that is come to Amazon, and it's the only game in town. I hesitate to go too far because I sound like I'm building into something it's not, but it's really hard to understand that he's going to own e-commerce.
Right. And no, Chris, that's why I brought you on the show, really, is your expertise around this space. And, you're spending all day, every day in it. And people can hear it from me coming from Marknology, but I think it's good to hear from, other experts in this space that have a passion for it, that really, kind of see it like I do. And I'm the Amazon show on Tuesdays. This is when we air. So, okay. So we want to talk Amazon. Let's get into it. Let's talk about the passion. Okay. I know there's a lot of listeners, that have thought about Amazon, whether they're entrepreneurs, they might be brand owners, they might be founders that are like, hey, is Amazon even a thing for us? I got heckled one time at some speaking event I was doing, and I say heckle lightly, but he was just kind of trying to razz me about being in the session. And, he's like, well, I don't have a brand. And, I was like, all right, let's just pretend like you have a brand. I want to educate you guys a little bit on Amazon. And he's like, well, I own an electricity company, or electrician. He's an electrician. And, as a trade. And I said, well, did you know that you can, list your business on Amazon as a trade? And he's like, then his next thing was, well, no, I didn't. But we're trying to handle bigger jobs. I'm sure like whatever we're getting to install a light fixture, a ceiling fan isn't good, And I said, well, you could put your junior guy on that, crush the job, become a loss leader for you to do great work with those customers, and have those customers for life. It's happening automatically just by them ordering the fan and then choosing that they want an installer, So I said all that to say this, just like your neighbors, for better or worse, Amazon is creating a lot of jobs or a lot of opportunity for people in one way or another, right? Yeah. Whether it's working at the warehouse, whether it's, a more corporate job, whether it's listing your products on there, whether it's finding service-based jobs, or, growing a company like Marknology that's literally not employed by Amazon, but the jobs have been created because of Amazon.
Yeah. And in all of that. And I really just, again, even if I actually have friends that are lawyers that are, because of the types of clients they had, they're actually unemployed lawyers. And, I said, if you add Amazon, you now become a unicorn, and you go from being a commodity on one side of that membrane to being, on an open grass field with the future at your beck and call. So, I don't want to touch it up. We are talking about Amazon. I understand but it really is phenomenal what's going on. There's a company, if anybody wants to follow too much, I think my favorite company, The Model, I think this is the first $1 billion company, I think, that comes out of the $1 trillion company. And that would be Pattern. Pattern's, a little bit like Thrash, but they're doing all these other things. And it's just amazing what they're doing. And it's just a different model and the like, but and with different backing. But these are some of the players that are coming out of that that ecosphere. Some of the stars that are forming, if you will. But it's early. It's very early.
No, and I got super hype with the Thrash IPO, because as a trailblazer, like someone in this space, like I believe in it. I'm super passionate. I'm 9 years in. I've been obsessing for 9 years. But sometimes you can feel a little bit alone on an island. That's probably why we've connected so much, is like being able to passionately talk about this stuff, because there's money involved. There's a lot of money involved, and it gets me excited. And but with with Thrash coming out and getting the attention of some of the bigger markets and money and things like that, just bring a little bit more excitement to the space. And for me, it validated, what I already believed to be a great idea, which was to acquire small brands or start small brands like people have known for a while. But if you're an agency, just start wrapping them under your umbrella. I'm not sure if we've connected on this, but I bought a small brand 2 weeks ago.
Oh, congratulations!
Thank
I knew
you.
you already had a brand, at least a couple brands, right? Now is
Right.
this a new one?
I have an apparel brand,
Okay.
Landlocked, that I founded from the beginning. Had it 6 years. This is a little Amazon brand that I bought.
And
So
are you gonna? Are you? Can you talk about it or?
yeah, it's called Little Babbler, and it's like essentially baby's towels with the little hoods, little animal hoods, right?
Nice.
So yeah, you got the little characters on the hoods, and this is just a guy that was trying to get out. He has a bunch of different projects going on, and was just trying to put his focus in somewhere else. So a great little spot for me to get my foot wet. Just it comes with 9,000 in inventory and a few things like that. But it's essentially for Marknology. It's just let's treat it like another client and go through our checklist of improvements and get this thing running. So I'm kind of excited. It's a really small move to wrap out the year. But it's for me, it's a move in the right direction and in the lines of what Thrash and Patterns are doing.
Well, and again, we don't want to go too far into the agency model, but I mean, the one could succeed very well in just simply having a good book of business and a nice, but when you then turn those tools inward and you get some equity, instead of getting paid $5,000 a month in fees and earning, $50,000 for the brand that you're representing, you actually why not buy them and do it yourself? And so it kind of gets to that flipping idea. You don't have to be an agency. You could be simply a capital group. 3 friends get together, look, have their eye on a Amazon brand that's kind of languishing. Maybe with Marknology, they can identify those and they invest in them. I think that's where we're going to go, and where there's going to be a lot of little Thrashes around. I mean, I think it's just going to be like real estate, honestly. And I think that's where we're going. And then I would just mention one thing is that, it's an important moniker other than Thrash is that it was Anker going public, which is Anker, which is the iPhone accessory company, who was Amazon native, and they were the first Amazon native brand to then have a exit as at an IPO, which was again like all the dollars that just went in the retail environment, which just shrank about the retail shelf shrank about 30%, and maybe although some of that's permanent, all of that advertising dollars just looked over at Thrash, and yeah, it's game on. So
no, it's cool. And I was talking to a distributor, deals in food, recently, and I don't know if this is true, but I like theorizing a little bit. But the grocery stores down south, like in Florida and these areas like that, are talking about going to straight pick and pull type grocery stores, launching new stores that are pick and pull, Kroger's, things like that, where it's all your grocery stores are there in bins. It's automated where they're going, picking it up. You get a locker out front. You show up, you grab out of your locker, you're getting your groceries. Similar to like drive by or like the pickups that they've all kind of gone to during the pandemic, but essentially launching new grocery stores with that being the sole purpose,
right,
I think is pretty
a
cool.
distribution point for human consumption.
Yeah, and I mean it makes sense. There's no real reason to walk around it,
Right. Well, I don't know if you've ever tried Pantry. If you haven't, I think I just did it because and it's actually very nice, and it ties nicely into your reward points, and it's if you again
gamify it a little bit, yeah.
Right, yeah. If you smoke the Amazon weed, if you smoke all the weed, then it works out really well. And I think they like you to do that. But if you've ever been to a Whole Foods, I mean, it's interesting, and you can see it kind of tying into your Amazon experience. And if you're in the space and you haven't done that, I encourage it to at least try those things. But and if you don't have an Echo, you'll buy one and it just sits there, But anyway, there's a lot of places. I was mentioning earlier that I have friends that are lawyers that were unemployed, and I did actually have I have a friend that actually started. He was one of the first Amazon Plus lawyers, and started branch of Voorhees, and if you know that name, if you've been on the receiving end of that name, they're killing it, but they're out there doing the brand protection and firing off, just salvos at people that are, are in violation of their distribution agreement or those type of things. And, they were an old stodgy, something and something agency actually here in Ohio, and now are the #1 Amazon lawyer in the world.
That's crazy. I want to change topics just a little bit before we do. One more shout out to our sponsor for today's episode, Fullscale.io, help you build software teams quickly and affordably. Much like Marknology can help you build on Amazon and get your shelf space looking amazing. Fullscale.io can help you with your software development needs. Great partner. Chris, to any lawyers out there listening that are trying to get into a new space, like I would love to mentor one. Or partner alongside with one that's essentially trying to learn what they need to know in the Amazon space to then, kind of go into that. They would obviously have to be wanting to go in, but would love to partner up alongside one.
We're doing business right here. We're doing business right here, right now. So yes, I know exactly who you should talk to, coincidentally. So yes.
Yeah, I love it. I would love to give someone my knowledge. We've gotten hundreds of appeals and things like that unsuspended and guided hundreds of sellers through some of those channels. And there's always this point where we get to sometimes where we need that lawyer, that next level of sophistication. But a ton of experience in that space, and an awesome one for lawyers that are trying to get into something new. And either needing to pivot or just want to tired with what they're doing and want to move.
Sure. So I use that as an example. I'll use one more example, and that's the hiring spot place. You may know this. I want to circle back on it with you, but I actually just found this out. It turns out that the wellspring of skills and knowledge in this space is coming from the Philippines. In fact, the Filipino government has come down and with grants to people to shift. We typically was the VA, the quote, your virtual assistant level, but they've actually shifted to Amazon skill sets. So you can get your FTEs, your full-time employees, out of the Philippines. And I know for a fact now, I just discovered this, that some of the larger agencies in this space have about half their employees out of the Philippines. Yep. And that's the only place you can find people.
Fullscale.io is actually, here in Kansas City and in the Philippines.
There we go.
Yeah, Cebu City, it's like the Silicon Valley out there, and just full of talent. Just American companies have been, training, working with them for years and years and years, and that's just kind of created that environment that's perfect.
Yeah. The #1 English speaking, native English speaking, highly educated. The system but again, even the government is realizing that they should encourage a virtual workforce before all of this. And now obviously, I if I may, quick rant is that, our university system and our knowledge and Amazon, even themselves, really doesn't even have a quote unquote developer program per se or a community. I think they're woefully neglected. They could really turn a lot of people, reskill or upskill people much better than they are now. But I encourage you, if you're out there and you have that opportunity, you're looking for the new thing, just put an Amazon label on it and it'll be gold.
I can't disagree. Chris, let's wrap up the show the next 15 minutes or so. Let's talk about two things. I want to talk about where you think Amazon is going into 2021, outside of the Thrashes and the agencies grabbing up some brands, because there's still a whole lot of brands that won't be part of that.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And then I want to talk about, let's start there. Let's start with that. Looking into 2021, we're wrapping up December, we're wrapping up Q4. January's still busy on Amazon as far as, my experience tells me that January is still very busy. What should agencies be thinking about, or what should companies be thinking about? And where do you think this space is going?
Well, the first question is companies should be thinking about, most cases, getting their stuff on Amazon, getting up there, participating in the Amazon, getting data, getting sales information, getting reviews, and honing what they think, you can always shine that apple a little bit more, and revisiting that and make sure that someone, your agency or you, has the expertise at doing all of that. Because if you do that properly, then you are ahead of the game versus everyone else, and you've solved for Amazon. So what was the second question?
Okay, so just to hammer on that one a little bit.
Sure.
What to their hesitations? What if they don't believe that their profit margins are ready for Amazon, or that they don't have a product that's good for Amazon? To those kind of like hesitant brands, that are scared of Amazon, what's a piece of advice you'd give them to kind of help them get over that hurdle and onto the next step?
I mean, I guess I would just educate myself. I mean, I'd literally start with that frontline video. I mean, I think it just spells out the new world that's happening right now, and that's a fact. And so now you have to react to that as a company. And I think I would encourage to look deep in realizing that I don't know where you're selling your product, but if it's on a retail shelf, if it was on a retail shelf, it needs to be on Amazon. And if it's a B2B product that's sold, by the bulk, or, as a 50 pack in a B2B environment, that distribution network is going away, and you need to be on Amazon, Amazon Business. So I don't know if I'm answering the question. This is more Amazon, I guess. I know that's the answer always, right? More Amazon.
I wanted to say you there because, I think that one of the biggest things is that these companies, these brands, manufacturers, they have systems, they have distributors, they have sales teams, they have retail teams, they have complexities, right? But I think the opportunity cost for not having someone with wisdom, whether it's me, whether it's Chris, whether it's an outside force, like whether it's, bringing them in and talking to them about your business, about about the future for your business on Amazon, even if it's to just protect it and mitigate against it. The opportunity cost of not getting that knowledge is, for a lot of business, I think it will be the end of their business. If they're not looking at Amazon in some way or another, they can't ignore it. Right?
It's the most important business decision you will make. Even if I talk to a lot of fourth generation manufacturers. They have 4,000 products. They're a family business, never did anything in the 2000s. So they have yet to do anything in commerce because they were fine with their old distribution network. Well, guess what? And so, those are the types of situations. So even the small sellers, the large sellers, even the big brands, even Procter & Gamble's trying to figure it out, right? And if you can help them in some way or bypass them in some way, the playground is level now. So theoretically, you could come up with a better product than the Gillette razor and launch it on Amazon and outdistance them in sales on that, and put yourself as an acquisition target at 4 or 5 or 10x exit on that, really within overnight theoretically. So
we love Amazon for anyone listening. And we are passionate about it, but it's an authentic passion that's legitimately it's like a doctor knowing you have a tumor and trying to tell you, you have a tumor, let me take it out.
Right.
And sorry if that's all color, but my point being, it's serious. And as a business consultant, an Amazon consultant, another person that helps brands find that, it's you need to get the information. You need to go in for a checkup. You need to figure out what's going on.
Real quick, you had mentioned, I encourage this as if you're not ready to meet an agency or make that step, go and find, or I'll help you find, 3 or 4 agencies, and go have them, pay them $5,000 a piece to go out and say, I'm looking for, evidence, what's my competitors doing? What does this category look like? What should I be doing? And give me your top 10 list of things you would do. Okay. And then when you run out of hours, just send me it. Okay. That right there is probably the best research you could probably ever do. People pay Gardner, millions of dollars for that kind of research to make an educated decision. And so now you've got at worst, you've got maybe 3 plans that match up and some other ideas. And then you worked with those agencies, you vetted them, you know who you like, and you go off on your relationship from there with much, much better knowledge. It's stuff like that. And I encourage also everybody just to keep reading and learning about Amazon more and more. Follow shows like this. Awesome blogs out there and thought leaders in this space, and because the more you learn, the more you can speak and see the opportunity that is right here.
Yeah, you guys heard it, Chris Freiberger. One last question, Chris. Um, I think we will, on the flip side of that, okay, like you've been in this space 2.5 years. I know you've given me some guidance, some coaching. What are some things that brands or manufacturers should look out for if they're talking to an agency and they don't talk to you that's already been vetted out? Like, let's try to give them some tips, like not from me,
Sure.
that some of these agencies, that are helping brands or consultants. We talked about it being the Wild West. What are some of them doing wrong? And how can these brands make sure they get the right partner?
Yeah. So, when choosing an agency, it's much like choosing a life partner. And it feels very much like that. So, you should like their work. You should like them because you're going to be working very close to them. And there should be a layer of trust there, obviously, in their expertise, right? It should have category knowledge that's relevant to yours, and they should obviously have demonstrated that in the space. And again, most of these agencies are young. That is, I don't want to say immature, but in the sense that do they have the processes in place? Do they have the tools in place to interact? Are they good at project management? Can you talk to their clients and ask them about, like, what's your account manager like, and those type of things, because it is very much like a marriage. I'm in the middle of all of that, trying to introduce people, and wine and dine them to marry, and those are some of the questions I would ask to make sure that and vet them. What do their peers think about them? What do their clients think about them? Do your homework.
Yep. Do your homework. I think you heard it on both sides of it. It's do your homework, but it's too costly not to. And I'm excited, Chris. I think I'm going to have you on the show multiple times in 2021. There's just going to be a lot to talk about. I know we're wrapping up the year and there's a lot of like moving parts. I think some of those things will stop moving, and it'll be exciting to talk about them. You've been leading the way as far as information with me in regards to, like, the mergers and the wrap ups and what agencies are going to roll into what agencies, and who's going to be standing when the dust clears.
Oh,
I think it's going to be pretty exciting. And I'm for you guys to know, I have all of Chris's information in the show notes. So I've had him up on screen for everybody that's tuned in live. You can find him at nReach.com. Chris has been in the media space, the advertising space, for 25 plus years. He's been in the Amazon space for several years as well, and greatly well known by us in the agency space as being someone that's well connected. So if you guys have any questions around Amazon and don't want to come to me directly, at Marknology, reach out to Chris. He'll probably recommend Marknology as one. Give you a couple others as well that are good agencies. And I as an agency owner have never had an issue with that, because I believe our recommendations or our roadmap for a brand will match up very closely with anyone else's. Like, if what you're doing in this space, they match up. And it's really about, at that level, it's like, what's the best fit for you culturally, and who's going to be the best team.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I would thank you again. Thank you to Startup Hustle. Awesome. And I am starting to go through the archive, and it's good stuff. Thank you to Andrew as well. And I'd offer to help anybody out there with any aspect of Amazon. But moreover, I really encourage you to come further into the space and drink more Kool-Aid, I guess. So.
drink more of the Kool-Aid. Thanks again to our sponsor, Fullscale.io. Chris, we'll talk soon. This won't be the last time. See you later.
Thanks so much.